Some weeks ago I got a very interesting comment. I use eggs all the time and thought, how can you not like eggs, especially with a running yolk? But yeah guys, how can you like this poop running down your sandwich? Don't worry guys, I'm here to help and we will solve Terry's problem with the running egg yolk. Today I will give you a beautiful recipe. Look at this beautiful golden treasure. Let's make curd egg yolks and you can use this for everything. If you don't know what curing is, let me tell you. It's like a preservation process for food that you can achieve by adding salt. And with this you will throw out this disgusting moisture. The amazing thing is when you try it out an egg yolk, you can use it like a Parmesan cheese. This will give an umami blast, which I think you need in every dish. Also, it's super easy and only takes some minutes to prep.
We need a good amount of sugar and salt. About 1 kilo of salt followed by 700 grams of sugar. The first step is to mix this up a little and then dump in several scoops of the sugar and salt. Mix into a food processor. For curing eggs, it's the best to get a nice powdered coating, so it will absorb all the moisture. Fill this up as much as you can and place on your lid. This looks almost like powdered sugar. Let's pour out our mixture evenly across a baking tray. We are only pouring half of the content of this bowl, because obviously you need enough to cover our eggs at the end. Make sure you have plenty of salt, both under and on the top of the yolk. Otherwise you can get soft sticky spots around the yolk. A little tip, you can use the eggshell to make little holes for the egg yolk. I will crack down my eggs, open it up and pour out the yolk into my hand. Throw away the eggshell, but I won't throw away the egg white. You can make so much out of them. Be careful so you don't break any of them. Once we're at the end, place the last one into the pit. They are all in here. We're gonna take our remaining salt mixture and gently cover each of the egg yolk, just to make really sure everything is covered. You don't want to see any orange on your mounds, because when you don't use enough salt, this whole work is ruined and won't work. Take a big layer of saran wrap and just cover this really well. Wrap the entire thing. When this is well covered, we're going to keep these in the fridge for 1 whole week.
The only step left is to let them dry out and yeah, we are done. It's pretty easy, right? So I will be back in a week with the egg yolks.
After about a week, our yolks are done, and because we don't want to break anything, take a sharp knife and cut out the saran paper. I will open up the chicken yolk. You can see right here that our salt is super crumbly and kinda wet. This is because it drained out all the moisture from the egg yolk. It's almost like snow wet, it's all absorbed the moisture, and now I can easily pack this up. Now that we are done the drying process, which of course takes the longest out of this whole thing. The first step is to dig all of these egg yolks out, which definitely is one of my favorite parts. Once you have taken them out, scrape off all that salt. I wouldn't recommend to use broken egg yolks. But you're not done yet. First, we don't really want a bunch of salt hanging around these egg edges, so we will rinse them in cold water. And the result should be like this: a shiny translucent egg yolk. And just imagine you get one of these served. This would be a banger. Once the part is done, put it between a paper towel and just lightly pat it dry. Don't forget, the whole point of this process has to be to draw out all the moisture. Then simply place the egg yolk down on a wire rack and this will dry out in the oven. A few more of my chicken yolks. Get a nice even spread of these. I have to say it again, this is just a perfect egg yolk. But once we're done with them, they are ready to be tossed into this oven.
We will put the yolks into the oven at 120 degrees Fahrenheit and we will slowly dehydrate them for 2 hours. You don't want to cook them at a too high of a temperature, otherwise they will bubble and will melt. So we will bring them back into the original form. When this starts to bubble, the temperature is too high and you have to set it down.
I will be right back with this. Now fresh out of the oven we have our yolks. They changed a little bit in color, but now they are more intense and more delicious than ever. It's ready to grate over, just like you grate Parmesan cheese over anything you want.
Yeah guys, I know you want some recipes where you can use these egg yolks on. I have 3 different ideas where I think this might work well.
We'll make a delicious white pizza with one of the best pizza doughs you can make at home. Also, I want to show you how to cook the perfect steak with only using a pan. And for last, we can't finish an egg dish without using some nice fresh chicken. I want to make a chicken fricasse. Trust me, this one is amazing. Let's start with a super classic cut of beef, a rump steak. And like I said, it will take only one pan to make this super tasty. Just look at the color, it's incredible. It's super important to get the steaks to room temperature by taking them out of the fridge for at least 30 minutes. Sprinkle salt on each side. Drizzle oil in the pan and then cook the steak for 3 minutes on each side. Turn the steak over after 3 minutes. You can add butter and herbs you like. For me, just a little thyme and rosemary. The steak will be basted for a few minutes into the pan and then wrapped in aluminium foil with the butter and herbs. And then we will season it with pepper. Make sure you close it up and let it rest for 10 minutes. Once your meat has rested, you take it out of the aluminium foil. Put it on a plate and begin cutting into beautiful slices. As you can see, this meat is perfectly cooked. But to get this meat on another level, we will finish it off with our salt curd eggs. Now put a good amount of egg yolk on top. And now just enjoy this divine piece of meat. This was good. It's time for the pizza. Of course, I will make a homemade dough.
Maybe a pizza dough seems kinda difficult for you, but when you know the fundamentals, it's super easy.
The first thing is to use the right type of flour. This is very important. You need to use type 00 flour. Personally, I will always start with the water and then add the salt to dissolve. It's also important to not mix the yeast with the salt. So let us separate it by adding 10% of the flour to the water. I will take the yeast and give it into the mix to dissolve.
People tend to use too much yeast on a pizza dough. But guys, you have to keep in mind, when you make a pizza dough, you will let the dough rest for 3 to 4 days in the fridge. Because we let our dough in the fridge, it fermented, and because of this we will get a unique flavor which we will only get in the dough.
Once we achieve the creamy paste like a pancake dough, we will continue to add a little bits of flour at a time, letting the flour absorb all the water. Keep mixing until you get a nice soft and smooth dough. As soon as you see the dough has formed and looks like this, turn it on the bench, and now the real fun begins. We want to use both hands and always mix the dough into the flour. You can tell the dough is ready by making a ball and press it down like this. If it pops back up, it's ready. Give our dough a side and let it rest for 2 hours. We'll cover our dough with a damp cloth. Our dough balls will be made once it has rested. Let me show you how to make dough balls on the spot. We need about 200 grams of dough for one pizza. You can see how the yeast is working. You have several ways to do so. The first would be round the dough portion on the bench like this. Round the dough with your hand. Just get them nice round on your bench. After you did all this work, you get these beautiful round dough balls. Now you have to let them rest for 2 more hours at a warm place. Then place them into a tightly sealed container and let them rest in the fridge for 2 to 3 days. The next step is to make a bechamel sauce. This is super simple. We're going to start with 2 tablespoons of butter and while stirring add 2 tablespoons of flour. But don't let the butter get brown. Then 400 milliliters of milk is added. Just stir this for a few more minutes until it thickens up. Season with some freshly grounded pepper and salt. Whisk until well combined. I want to use 3 types of cheese. We're gonna shred a classic pecorino cheese. I also like to use shredded Gruyere on my pizza. It is not Italian, but I think it's one of the best cheeses in the world, so I like to add it. And for last, some nice mozzarella cheese. The first step is to always put flour on the pizza peel, so it doesn't stick. This is the worst thing that can happen to our dough. The best way to stretch a pizza, when you don't have these mad pizza throwing skills, is actually just to let its own weight do all the work. I leave the edges in areas I feel like they might a bit too thick. When your dough is stretched out nicely, place it on a pizza peel and spread a thin layer of white sauce over it. Sprinkle over the cheese I mentioned before on the pizza. Finish your pizza with some fresh basil. You can add it before or after baking. It's completely up to you. It's important to get the oven as hot as possible to bake your pizza. Bake it for 5 minutes at highest temperature. We got a beautiful crust. Just look at the texture of the dough. It's really incredible. And just yet, let's give on some of the yolk. Create a generous amount of egg yolk on the pizza, getting to flow out really nicely. It's actually super interesting to see something like a yolk turned into this. I want to use a lot because the egg is the star. This is an amazing pizza and it tastes so fantastic.
Which came first, the egg or the chicken? But this question doesn't matter for our last dish, because I want to use them together.
So we'll take these beautiful chicken thighs. I want to start with the chicken stock. We will use it to make a creamy sauce. For this I have to prepare vegetables like carrots, celery, puree and onions. Into a pot I will give onions with the chicken thighs and of course all the other vegetables, carrots, celery, puree. As herbs I give a bunch of parsley, bay leaf and thyme to the chicken. We're gonna fill this up till everything is covered, 3 inches above the meat. Bring this to a boil and then let it simmer for 3 more hours so all the flavor is infused into the chicken and the broth. Once our chicken stock is done, we're gonna strain out all the chicken and vegetables. I'm going to remove the thyme stick and bay leaf. Separate the vegetables from the chicken, then I want to add them to the creamy sauce again. You can see how juicy this chicken is. Remove all the bones from the meat. This is super easy. In order to make a roux, we combined 1 tablespoon butter with 1 tablespoon flour and whisk them together. And let us get a light brown color. Don't stop stirring. As soon as this is complete, I want to deglaze with some nice white wine. Then I want you to keep whisking in our homemade chicken broth. Give in one ladle after another. We want to make a tasty smooth sauce. Let the sauce reduce to 2/3. Once they're done, we're gonna add the vegetables and the chicken. Just stir a little with a spoon. Add some thyme leaves and finish with 100 milliliters of heavy cream. Get this a nice whisk. You can see how creamy and rich the sauce is. Season this dish with oregano, parsley, also salt. I'm gonna cook some basmati rice for this and add it to the plate. Then our lovely fricasse. Grate over some lime zest and for last our homemade salt curd egg yolk. I love the soft and juicy chicken in our creamy and rich sauce. With this kick of the yolk and the freshness of the lime.
Guys, I'm still shocked how good this is. When you have time, please try this out. And when you're too lazy to make any of these recipes, just take some cup noodles and grate them over. This will taste fantastic as well. I love you guys and I hope I see you in the next video. Bye!